On today's Locked On NBA Game Night podcast, we're diving into the player developments that can shape the NBA season.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night, tipping off now.
Let's get it going on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast. I'm Rylan Stiles. That's Gavin Schall. We are a Saturday night duo covering all things NBA. This is our last week without covering actual games on NBA Game Night, as preseason will be in full swing by the time Saturday rolls around. Monday, the entire league will be at media day and training camp. There's already some teams like your Knicks who have already done their media day and have gotten their training camp underway. But Gavin, how are you feeling now that we've kind of made it out of the offseason? We're officially past the offseason point.
Yeah, maybe it's just because to your point, the outlook for my Knicks are as good as they've been in the last 25 years. But I can't remember being so hungry to have NBA basketball back in my life. This feels like the longest summer ever. I'm just so ready to have games back. I think the league is exciting, as interesting as it has ever been.
It's so interesting to see how this season will take shape. And it's interesting to also think about the ways we looked at the league a year ago to this day, of like what we expected from Boston, what we expected from other teams, and things. Some of them went according to plan. Like we all expected OKC to be really good. They were really good. Some things didn't go according to plan. I mean, who would have predicted a year ago today that in the middle of the season, Luka Doncic would not be a Dallas Maverick anymore? Like the NBA is full of twists and turns. It's the greatest drama that we have. So I'm excited to see how this season takes shape. And you had a great idea for this episode of kind of drafting the players who, if they make these improvements, they will be the reason why the season shapes up the way it does. And some of these players that we're going to draft today, if they make these improvements that we want them to, they will redefine the season that we're predicting to have happen this year. So Gavin, I'm going to give you the first pick as it was your idea. What is a player who you're interested in breaking out with a new developed skill?
Yeah, I won't take too long on it. It's funny, a lot of my top picks are guys like you and I have explored in the context of different drafts and different prediction episodes. So this will be a familiar name for people who are fans of us as a Saturday night duo. But I'm going with not the favorite in the clubhouse, which is Amen Thompson's jumper. I'm going with a different jumper. I'm going with Franz Wagner's jumper. I said the stats the other week, but I'll reiterate them for all the non-Magic fans out there. He shot under 30% from three each of the last 2 years after shooting 35% from three each of his first two seasons. And part of the appeal with him coming out of Michigan, right, was like the potential to develop into like a big shooter. And he has not been that, at least from 3-point range, each of the last two seasons. That hasn't stopped him from taking them. Last season, 29.5% from distance on a career high 5.9 attempts per game. In the playoffs, part of this had to do with the Celtics defense just being smothering and the Magic not really being able to find quality shots outside of Paolo Banchero just barbecuing the Celtics for a lot of that series. In the playoffs, he took over 7 a game and he shot just 19% on them. I think the Magic are maybe under-discussed as a team that can get out of the Eastern Conference. Rightfully, they should be behind the New York Knicks. They should be behind the Cleveland Cavaliers, given they haven't won a playoff series yet. They haven't been a top 2 seed yet, right? They were incredibly unhealthy last year. We talked about it in a previous episode, but they had the second worst three-point shooting season as a team from a percentage standpoint in the last 25 years of NBA basketball, right? If they can just become decent at shooting the ball, and Desmond Bane is going to get them a long way there. But to me, Franz Wagner is the defining figure in that revolution. I'm sure they'd like more from Paolo Banchero. They'd like a bounce back season from Jalen Suggs. But Franz Wagner, with the shooting he showed earlier in his career, I believe is a top 12 player in the NBA, maybe even a better bet than Paolo Banchero to be an alpha dog on a championship type team. We've seen it before, Rylan, on the world stage. I'm ready to see it in the NBA. Career 86% free throw shooter. I don't think there's any question about the touch. I think it's about his timing and his mechanics and getting those straightened out.
I love that draft pick. I think it's a lot of fun to think about because the Magic are that team that, like, right now we do slot them behind Cleveland and New York. But if you get a step forward in that department from three-point land from Franz or from a lot of guys on their roster, then they could be in a different conversation altogether because we know how great that defense is going to be when they're healthy. So it's an interesting one. I'm going to go with the leader in the clubhouse in Amen Thompson. But I think it'd be cheating to just say his overall scoring profile. So I will narrow it down to that jump shot, because I do believe that after seeing the news of Fred VanVleet's injury and what that does to Houston's guard rotation and guard room, which right now looks pretty bleak, honestly, because you're looking at just Thompson and then Reed Shepard trying to take a step forward, and then Holiday's still in there. Like, it's a weird group right now, but he can alleviate some of the stress of trying to replace a Fred VanVleet if he can take a step forward as an on-ball scorer. And with that comes his ability to knock down pull-up jump shots. I think that doing that at the three-point line in the mid-range on top of what you expect him to do at the rim, then you get a more finished score. Because I think that his playmaking, while he didn't get to show it a ton last year because of the role he was in, I think that playmaking is actually really, really solid and really good. You could look back at who he was as a prospect. So I think that the playmaking aspect will take a step forward in the eyes of the NBA world, but I don't think that it necessarily will become a point of development for him. I think that it's just him being able to show it more, whereas the jumper and his scoring prowess, that will have to take a step forward for him to replicate what they had with Fred VanVleet. And then if you can get that, you now have a guy to replace Fred VanVleet, and you still have a core in Houston that they think is a contending core. And I think that they're right in that thought process. So if he can unlock a jump shot this year, it does wonders for Houston's offense, which was abysmal last season. And we know that their defense is still going to be good. If they can get better offensively with the addition of Kevin Durant and then the addition of a better score from Thompson, you're going to have a really good team in Houston still.
Yeah, I was gonna say his 3-point shot, and I wanted to take some time and think about it. I wanted to read what Rockets fans had to say, because last season, 27.5% from three, which, to be fair, was a massive jump from his rookie season, where he only shot 14% from three. So if he continues on that trajectory, we should expect about 55% shooting for 3-point range this year. Probably will not happen. Took just 1.3 attempts per game. Took just 4 of them in that 7-game series against the Warriors. I think it's very much a question if that is ever going to be a part of his arsenal. And you and I had the debate the other week. Does it need to be? And like, what is the template for a superstar wing that does not consistently shoot the 3 ball? And that is Jimmy Butler, who has obviously turned into someone where the 3-point shot can occasionally be a timely weapon for him. Like he's pulled off playoff games before where he's made 4 or 5 of them when he's dared to shoot. But there is a template for him to be like an all NBA type wing without developing that. The key to your point, that mid-range game and his handle has to continue to get better for his ability to access that shot. But at his size, with his athleticism, teams are going to concede mid-range shots for him his entire career, right? In a different way, but it's similar to Giannis, where as a defense, that's a win every single time he takes that mid-range jumper. Last season wasn't awful from there, right? 43%. He took a whole bunch of them. If he can get more consistent on that, and if his handle allows him to get to the rim, even when opponents are backing up and daring him to do anything else, like he is going to be a star as soon as next season. And to your point on the Fred VanVleet injury, I think it puts more of an onus on his handle to get better. But it does make a little less of an issue of his 3-point shooting, right? Because more time on the ball means less time where there's a defender able to sag off him. So in a weird, convoluted way, I think losing Fred VanVleet can actually like mitigate the issue of his shooting at least a tiny bit.
And it can really create some interesting lineups out there too, with the size that Houston can put on the floor, with Thompson playing the 1 if he's going to replace Fred VanVleet, which I expect him to with Ime Udoka's lineups. Then you can also turn that into a quasi advantage of just being a lot bigger than your matchups on the court. So I'm interested to see how Houston manages that, and a lot of that comes down to the progression of Thompson moving forward this season. A lot is riding on him. But coming up, let's continue this player developmental draft. Who can we see shaping the NBA and their individual careers with a step forward this season coming up? But first, I want to say right now, but your friends over at Skims, go check out Skims today, because Skims is incredible, folks. When I found out that Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family, so I had to give it a try, and let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. This underwear, it fits comfortably. It has the right style for whatever you're looking for. Skims has changed the game, because you can have the boxers, the boxer briefs, or just the classic briefs. It's all designed with the perfect balance of comfort but stylish. They keep their shape. They're just brilliant. And to tell you how good these are, I know that this is kind of a taboo subject in men's culture, is talking underwear, but we have our weekly meetings here at Locked On, and all of us hop in, especially after Skims sends us more and says, you know what, Skims is the best underwear we've ever had. And we're just talking shop with the fellas, talking about underwear because they're that good. You're going to love Skims. It's the best underwear that I've ever worn. I love wearing them right this second. I'm wearing Skims. Go shop Skims Men at skims.com. Let them know we sent you by going and placing your order at skims.com and putting podcasts in the survey and then picking our show in the drop down menu that follows. Go check them out today at skims.com. We're back on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast. I'm Rylan Stiles. That's Gavin Schall. I'm Locked On Thunder. That's Locked On Knicks. We're here every Saturday breaking down the NBA. Next Saturday, we'll have actual games for game night. We'll also play an actual game, another draft next Saturday as well. But Gavin, right now, we're continuing our player development draft. Let's call it that for simplicity's sake. If these players can take steps forward in these skill sets, they can both change their trajectories of their careers, they can change the trajectory of the NBA season, and so on and so forth. Who's your second pick?
My second pick is going to be another guy we talked about in the past, Victor Wembanyama, and his ability to dominate the most valuable real estate in the game. And it is not three-point range. It is still around the rim. I've mentioned this stat before, but I keep going back to it because it's shocking to me. For a guy who allegedly is like 7'6" in shoes at this point, barely over a quarter of his shots came at the rim, just 27% of his shots at the rim. For a big on cleaning the glass, that is just 12th percentile in the NBA. When he's there, he's fantastic. He shoots 76% from around the rim. 90th percentile for a big in the NBA. Obviously, like it was great to see him in the first 2 years of his career stretch the bounds of his game, see what he could do from threes, see what he could do off the dribble, and that should still be a significant part of his game. And it's a big part about what makes him unique. But I don't think we can ignore the fact that this guy is 7'6" with extraordinary hands, extraordinary coordination. He spent the summer after the previous year. He spent the summer doing bag work with Jamal Crawford. This summer, it was Monks, and then it was Kevin Garnett, and then it was Hakeem Olajuwon, right? So there should be discipline. There should be borderline coked up levels of physicality, and there should be footwork, right? I want to see a dream shake from our guy Wemby. I think he is ready to take the next step in terms of like demanding a couple post-ups a game. And obviously from like a strength perspective, he's always going to be losing that low center of gravity battle. You wonder like just how successful he could be from the post. But I figure like on some quick hitters, you get the ball to him fast before a defender has a chance to move him. Like just his ability to turn, take a short fadeaway, take a short jump hook with his touch, he should be automatic on those. And then you signed De'Aaron Fox for a reason, right? Fastest point guard in the NBA, turning the corner and pick and rolls, has the ability to draw two defenders, has an ability to throw that one-handed hook lob. You'd like to see Wemby eat and get easy shots, even though Chris Paul helped him in a myriad of ways. That was not really one of them, right? It increased rim volume. So I really want to see an improvement there from Victor Wembanyama. And then maybe there's a world, I know that's not necessarily a factor in the championship race, but he could become one of the best players in the world. And I think tilt the balance of power towards San Antonio in future seasons if he masters that part of his game.
So I'm going to keep my draft pick in sort of the same vein, obviously to a much lesser extent than Wemby, but it's not necessarily a draft pick about this year's championship race or even this year's contention race. It's in Chicago with the Chicago Bulls, and we spend a lot of time talking Bulls here about sort of a rudderless ship. They're kind of directionless. Are they going to tank? Are they going to rebuild? What's their core? How do they get out of this kind of treadmill of mediocrity in Chicago? And I look at Josh Giddey as a guy that post All-Star break last year, and in that sample size, of course, is Mickey Mouse March, and you never know what to truly take from it. But Josh Giddey last year post All-Star break averaged a near triple-double with 21 points, 10 boards, 9 assists. He also shot 50% from the floor, 45% from three, and 80% from the free throw line, showing great touch at all three levels, especially, of course, dramatically improving from what he was as a three-point shooter a year ago in Chicago. And you just paid him this summer to kind of invest into Josh Giddey. You have Billy Donovan, who's now extended as well. And Billy Donovan has this reputation, rightfully so, as a guard whisperer, as a guy who can elevate the play of young guards especially. What if Josh Giddey's three-point shot really does come around, that he becomes a more versatile player who can play more on the ball, who can play more off the ball? You can start to see that Bulls core come together. If I'm not going to say he's a 50% or 45% three-point shooter, but if he does get to that passable clip from three and an above average clip from three, even good clip from three from Josh Giddey, if he can truly repeat his 3-point success and that jump shot success from last year, especially post All-Star break, then you start to envision a world of like him and Montes Buzelis, and you imagine more high picks in their future if they handle this rebuild the right way, and it can shape his career as a guy who we understand has good basketball qualities. But I think that it's still fair to question if his current day skill set can translate to winning and can translate to being on the floor in the biggest moments. If he can improve from 3 this season and sustain that on top of the small sample size he had a year ago of doing that, while being an efficient triple-double type of player, then it alleviates some of those question marks around the Bulls core and lets them feel better about where they're at the end of this season.
Yeah, I think it's a fun pick. I'm a little bit dubious of what he did post All-Star break. You see a lot of like quote unquote fake stats in the NBA, right? In March and April, especially in the Eastern Conference, right, where the bottom teams are tanking, the top teams at some nights are resting their stars, playing their stars conservative minutes, especially against a team like the Bulls. I want to see how real it is, because he showed flashes in Oklahoma City in the past and then completely faltered in the playoffs to the point that I believe right in that round 1 series against the Pelicans, like Oklahoma City either benched him or they started playing him a little bit
round 2 against Dallas. Yeah, he's
yeah.
excellent in New Orleans, but he was bad against Dallas. Had to break his starting streak. But yeah, totally fair to question his march, and that's why I think that it's not confirmed that's who he is, and it's not confirmed that he had a breakout season last year. He had a better season last year. Mm-hmm. He looked more comfortable last year. Part of that's by him being in a more comfortable position, not having Shea next to him to kind of push him off the ball more. But if he can prove that second half was closer to legit than not, then it does change the way that you view Giddey and the way you view the Bulls core.
No, that's the skeleton key for them. I mean, it is incredibly difficult to have a lead guard that does not shoot the ball at a high level off the dribble. And that is a tall task for Josh Giddey. If he gets there, it makes building around him immensely easier for the Bulls. And it honestly makes that contract he just signed a steal. And it is such a swing point for a team that has been rudderless since Derrick Rose left town, essentially. I'm going to bounce back for my next pick to a title contender, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers and Evan Mobley, and take a suggestion from our friend Danny Cunningham over at Locked On Cavs and talk about Evan Mobley's handle. According to NBA.com, less than 1 isolation a game for Mobley last year, put up just 0.83 points per possession, which is not a good number in isolation, right? That equivalent of shooting about 41% on the like true shooting on those isolation attempts. It's not really what Cleveland is ever going to ask him to do in bulk, right? As long as they have Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, he will always be the third option. Obviously, there's a lot he can get to within the flow of the offense. He took a big leap last season. Like I think his handle was even a little bit tighter last year. Just in terms of his aggression, he was clearly physically stronger last season. I just think at 24 years old, I don't want to say it's put up or shut up time for him, but like I think he's still scratching the surface to some extent of who he could be as a star. But we need to start to see it. Like I would love like an efficient 22 points per game for Mobley. Bit of a bump from what he did last year, a lot around the rim, getting to the foul line a little bit more because he has the length, he has the touch, he has the physicality. It's all there. I think the handle is kind of the connective tissue that allows his full game to flourish and will make Cleveland that more dangerous, that more multiple come playoff time.
I think that's another great pick, and it gets us back into the contending world. And I'm gonna veer closer to the contention than I was with the Bulls, but not quite at a contention status just yet for this pick. But I'm gonna go in Dallas, and Dallas has the widest range of outcomes this side of like the Sixers. Like the Sixers' wide range of outcomes is all predicated upon like injury and stuff that follows them reputation wise. With like, is Paul George going to be on the floor? Is Joel Embiid going to be on the floor and playing well with Paul George playing well? Like that stuff. We don't know. With Dallas, it's like, yeah, we know that they're going to be a good defense. We know they have a really good front court, but is AD going to be healthy? When does Kyrie come back? How fast can Cooper assimilate to the NBA and be an actual scorer for that team? Because we know he's going to play defense right out of the gate. And I look at a guy like Derek Lively, where not to say you have a logjam in the front court in a negative connotation, which that typically sounds like, but with Cooper Flag likely playing the 4 and Daniel Gafford and Anthony Davis and Derek Lively, like, can Derek Lively reinvent his game, or more so add to his game to really solidify his spot as like, we got to have this guy on the floor a lot. No matter if we have to slide Cooper to the 3 and play like this monstrous lineup of Cooper, AD, and Lively, as AD does not like to play the 5. And to do that, I think that it comes from Lively spacing the floor a bit more. You remember his first career 3 coming in the finals against Boston, and that's been something that he's teased going back to college in the combine of his ability to space the floor. can this be the year that he actually improves? And obviously, it doesn't have to be 3-point or bust. Like, I know it's taboo in this, economy in the NBA to have a big man taking mid-range jumpers, but if that is just an added dimension to his game, and it does shape how defenses defend Dallas, and if it does create with his passing ability more space to operate big to big stuff with him and AD, like it can help Dallas especially navigate the waters without Kyrie Irving if his jump shot at any point of any part of the floor is better than it has been. So I'm gonna look at Derek Lively's jump shot as like solidifying himself as a part of that core, because there also are questions about Derek Lively of, okay, well, obviously he dealt with injuries last year, and obviously last year got off the rails on Dallas because of the trade, but he was looked upon as a guy that's like, well, what is he without Luka? What is he without Luka spoon feeding him buckets? There's no guy to spoon feed you buckets until Kyrie gets back. That guard rotation is dreadful right now in Dallas. So can Lively still be an effective offensive player without Luka, without Kyrie? And if he can, it bodes really, really well for Dallas's case.
All right, can I take a Dallas big and raise you a Dallas big?
Go ahead.
I am drafting Anthony Davis's playmaking, and it feels weird to take a 32-year-old on this list, right? Like the emphasis obviously on guys under 25, guys who are still raw. But let me make the argument here. Last season, he had a 25% assist rate. That was 95th percentile for a big in the NBA. It was the first time in his entire career he'd gone over 19%. He had only had 2 previous seasons, I think over 16% in his career. Like that is a ridiculously high number for him. Best assist to usage ratio of his career as well. Obviously, this is the first time since he was like a pup in New Orleans, right, that the offense was going to run through him, right? When he was like, how old was he when he was traded to LA? Like 26 years old. It feels crazy that was that long ago, but it's true. Like, how much more has he developed just from a basketball IQ, a court mapping perspective over these last 6 years, and not really had a chance to show it in LA. And I think this is also like one of the higher degree of difficulty challenges of his career from that standpoint. Like you look at the depth that Dallas has or the depth chart that Dallas has, and there's just not going to be a lot of shooting. Like to your point, they're going to play a bunch of supersized lineups. There's going to be a lot of him and Lively, a lot of him and Gafford, PJ Washington, a decent 3-point shooter, Najee Marshall, like in fits and spurts, but overall not a great shooter. Cooper Flagg looked good at Duke. Hit and miss in summer league. I have a feeling it's going to be closer to low to mid 30s in Coop's first season in the NBA. Obviously, Klay Thompson is a legend, not quite the shooter he was early in his career. And until Kyrie Irving comes back, which maybe will be sooner than we think, there are reports out of Dallas that like he is well ahead of schedule there. There was a video of him banging half court threes, but until he comes back, like, who else creates a shot? Like, I guess D'Angelo Russell, but then you have to live with his defense. Cooper Flagg, maybe. Klay Thompson, maybe a little bit. Like, there's just not a ton of shot creation there. So much of it's going to be on AD in cramped spacing. Can he flash as a passer and just keep that team afloat until Kyrie comes back? Because if somehow Kyrie is 100% by the end of the season, I think that is a dark horse team to make an NBA Finals run.
I like that pick. I like the funkiness of a Dallas roster right now that could be really good, especially if they can just grind out games defensively and get enough offense to keep winning until Kyrie gets back. And it could also look like teams typically look without great guards to set up these bigs and with poor shooting that we expect Dallas to have. So it's a kind of a Pandora's box there in Dallas, and these kind of improvements could make life clearer in Dallas if they can make them. Coming up, let's continue this draft on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, I want to say right now, better good friends over at FanDuel. Go check out FanDuel today because the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with can't-miss offers. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel is great. It keeps the games fun. If you're ready to play, go download the FanDuel app today by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. If your first $5 bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. They already have NBA lines out there. If you want to take them, the Thunder on opening night are 8.5-point favorites over the Houston Rockets. But if you want to gander at the NFL action today, you can look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus 3.5 at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. Go check them out today at FanDuel.com. We're back on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm Rylan Stiles. That's Gavin Schall. And we're talking about the players who could define this season. You just drafted AD's playmaking. I'm going to get into the contention sphere, and I'm going to go with Chet Holmgren. Like, if Chet Holmgren becomes the all-star, all-NBA, all-defensive player that his ceiling is at, then it really does bolster a team that was already dominant last season and won a championship last season, and gets them to a better level, a more consistent level offensively, especially. So if I had to narrow it down to one skill, I would just say his three-point percentage on three-point volume, because his rookie season, we saw him shoot 37% from three on 4.3 attempts. Last season, we saw him shoot almost 38% from three on 3.6 attempts. Obviously, that was only on 32 games compared to 82 games because of the hip fracture. But we did see in the postseason, his three-point shot went flat. His shot's naturally flat, and you saw whenever his legs went, because he spent a lot of the season last year in the postseason, the shot got even flatter and it got even worse off the mark, to where it really bogged down some of those offensive lineups for OKC as they finished, the 13th out of 16 teams in the playoffs from three-point land. So if he can elevate from three and be consistent from three, and if he can get to that 40% mark from three like he was in those first 9 games last year before he fractured his hip, that opens up so much for him individually. It opens up so much for Oklahoma City, because if he's shooting 40% from three, guys are flying out to contest his shot, and he's a talented enough big man to put the ball on the deck, take one dribble, hit a mid-range shot, take a couple dribbles, get to the rim, get fouled, get to the free throw line. He's also a capable passer to dish out to the open man if you overcommit to trying to shut down that drive and kick three set up to Chet from these drive-heavy, on-ball dominant scoring guards like J-Dub, like Shea. So I think that Chet getting to that consistent level from three opens up so much for Oklahoma City and makes the already title favorites even better. So I think that he has to be in the mix here in this draft.
Yeah, I think so often three-point shooting issues end up being like cardio and core strength issues, right? Like, and you see it so often where guys start off shooting hot or go through a stretch of being hot and break down over the course of a season, break down over the course of a playoff run. And it's like how much stress and duress can you handle before your form starts to break down? And Chet, early in his career, right, bunch of injuries, like 2 incredibly long, I mean, especially last year, long playoff runs, long seasons. Like, can he just like does he know now what it takes to sustain his shot over the course of a 20+ game playoff run? And if he can figure that out, like, and especially as a guy like normally when we have those conversations, like I was talking to our buddy Ku Kahil about that with Cade Cunningham, like Chet has the benefit of not having that extended on-ball load that so many of like the young stars in the NBA have. Like his job, at least offensively, defensively is to do a lot, but offensively is a little bit more limited. I think he'll get there just from an endurance perspective. You went for your team, so I'll reach on my draft board and go for mine and say Mikal Bridges screen navigation. The Knicks traded 5 first-round picks and essentially like staked the success of the Jalen Brunson era in their championship aspirations on Mikal Bridges, and the idea that him and OG Anunoby could be so good defensively that they could cover up for Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. And year one, it just wasn't there for Mikal Bridges. He was Basketball Index's single worst like high volume screen navigator in the NBA. And granted, I think that stat at times was more reflective of Karl Anthony Towns' failings as a drop big than it was purely about Mikal's screen navigation. But Mike Brown has to find a way from a schematic standpoint, or getting Cat into better positions, or just requiring, even if it means he breaks his no games missed streak going all the way back to high school, we need more physicality from Mikal Bridges here in New York. He just did not really show it navigating screens last year. I do hope that the Knicks decide to start Deuce McBride and you see him off the ball a little bit more, where he excelled, especially against the Boston Celtics, where it was OG Anunoby who was the primary guy on the ball. But if he's asked to be on the ball, if he's asked to fight through screen after screen, he just has to be better than he was last year. That's not even really a skill development. It's more of refining his skill that he was very good at early in his career, but I'm hoping he spent the whole summer working on just that.
I like that pick as well. I'm going to go to the West contention again. I'm going to go to the Denver Nuggets. And we did get a suggestion from Locked On Nuggets. They mentioned that Christian Brown's shot creating, which I like that suggestion. I like that Denver needs, I agree that Denver needs him, or really anyone, but especially him, to step up in creating their own shot. But I'm going to go with Cam Johnson. And I think that Cam Johnson's chemistry with Nikola Jokic, and this is one of the harder developmentals to track because there's no real baseline, and also there's not a true stat that can define this, I don't think. But with Jokic, it just feels like he's such a advantageous and unique player to play against with his passing ability, that you have to always be ready. You have to always be ready to shoot. You have to always be moving. You have to always just be willing to make a play, because he's going to find you and he's going to draw so much attention to himself that he's going to set you up perfectly. And Michael Porter Jr., of course, had some flaws in Denver, but also last year, the playoff run went 7 games against OKC, and he was also unable to really be effective because of the injury, not because of any sort of like detrimental part to his game. And it's hard to replicate that level of chemistry, that level of trust from player to player, especially shooter to passer, over the course of one season, compared to the years of history that core had together and winning that championship together. So I want to see how quickly that Cam Johnson can get on the same page with Jokic as a guy who can benefit a lot from his playmaking and have things set up for him off of Jokic, and also not just like catch and shoot threes, but can he see himself getting these brilliant kickouts where now the defense is scrambling, and can he take advantage of that by putting the ball on the ground and getting to the basket and then facilitating from that standpoint or scoring from that standpoint. So just how the two-man game works with Cam Johnson off the ball alongside Nikola Jokic. I think if that thing clicks, and it clicks between now and April, then you're looking at a team that can absolutely beat anybody and can absolutely win a championship. If that thing sputters a little bit and they're not on the same page, and it takes something off of Cam Johnson's game, and you can see at that point an offense that might take a step backward from where it was a year ago. So I think that he's very important of getting those two guys assimilated together on the court. So I really want to see what those guys look like. Me personally, I'm banking on that being perfect and brilliant, and I'm banking on Denver being the second best team in the West and being a team that can beat anybody at all on any given playoff series, including Oklahoma City, and as one of the few true title contenders. But we can bank on it all we want to, but we have to see it on the court, and I want to see that aspect of their game.
I think that's an exceptional pick. I mean, he was one of the best shooters in basketball last year, operating as a de facto number 1, number 2 in Brooklyn. Like, defensive attention that frankly is not proportionate to his talent level. And just because he had so little help in Brooklyn and still shot just absurdly well from 3 on volume all season long, the degree of difficulty is about to go down like 100 levels, right? Like Jokic is going to spoon feed him some of the best looks he's got in his career. What he got used to, like playing off Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, like 2-man actions in Phoenix early in his career, playing off Devin Booker early in his career. It'll be returned to that. He's a better shooter now than he was then. Listen to that guy talk about shooting on the JJ Redick podcast back in the day. Like my goodness, or old man in the 3, my mistake. He is incredibly cerebral. I think Jokic is going to love him. I think he's going to love Jokic. That is a match made in basketball heaven. I'm knocking myself for missing out on him in my fantasy basketball draft. I think he's going to be awesome. My final pick, I will bring it full circle and go back to the Orlando Magic and say Paolo Banchero's floor game, right? They need one of those guys to break out as like a top 12-ish player, I think, to make the Eastern Conference Finals, to upset the Knicks or the Cavs, to make the NBA Finals and be competitive. They need both of those guys to break out. And Paolo Banchero has already shown signs of his floor game making a big leap, right? 98th percentile assist rate last year. Obviously, that is absolutely elite for a forward, but he was only 62nd percentile relative to usage. So he's a good passer. He's a plus passer, but he did that, Rylan, as I mentioned, in like an all-time bad three-point shooting environment in Orlando. Desmond Bane gives him an elite outlet, the type of shooter on volume and versatility that he has had nothing close to over the course of his career. You get that. You get a little bit of a bounce back from Franz. You get a little bit of a bounce back from Jalen Suggs. I think we could see Paolo Banchero, who's taken a lot of crap from NBA Twitter over the summer for being like a little bit of a lug out there, right? Not always making the best decisions on the floor. If he can get that, I don't even want to say straighten out because he's already good, but if he can get elite at that skill, I think it just opens up a whole new ceiling for Orlando. And I think it's a fun interplay between him and Franz's skill sets that could elevate that team to a level that I don't think a lot of people outside of Orlando are really anticipating for this season.
We are going to be all in on the Orlando Magic this season on Saturday night. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for Locked On NBA Game Nights every single day. Locked On NBA daily every single day. So 2 pods for the price of 1 on this feed. Go check it out anywhere you get your podcast from. Until next time, be good and be good to one another.